All right. So here's our first example, and I wrote down the big ideas for inverses. Inverses is all about the x's and the y's getting switched, and they get switched everywhere. What that does graphically is it reflects over the line y equals x. Y equals x is this little dotted green line that I put there. So I labeled a point on my original one. I'll slide it down. Oh, maybe I'll slide it down this way. I'll slide it up. That's what I want to do. I labeled -4, 4. That has an x coordinate and a y coordinate, and they just got switched. So on my blue graph, I instead have 4, -4. Now with -1, 1, when you switch those, they stayed the same, so I didn't label it again in blue, but I put the blue dot there. But I have 1, 3, it switches and becomes 3, 1. So the big idea that things switch, they switch with coordinates. Okay? Then when I go to connect my dots, sometimes we can connect our dots in the wrong order and our graph looks wrong. This is where the idea of it reflecting over this diagonal line is important. Sometimes it's hard for your brain to flip something over a diagonal line. Feel free to cheat this way on a test and turn your paper so your diagonal line is horizontal. And then your brain does a lot easier job of flipping it. So if we can imagine this being horizontal, that might make it easier to flip. And then we could connect the dots. Then it asks, is the inverse a function? So I'm going to remind you of the vertical line test. So I'm going to draw a vertical line, straight up and down. The vertical line test says if you take a vertical line and you drag it across a function, if it ever hits the function more than once, it is not, if it ever hits the graph, I shouldn't say function. If it ever hits the graph more than once, even just at one point, it is not a function. A function is something that every x value has only one y value. Right now, where I have the vertical line, this x value of 1 hits a y value here, and it also hits a y value there, making it not a function. The original graph, the red one, is a function because as I drag this across, it hits the red graph only once. So every x value has only one y value. That makes something a function. And then finally, we wrote down our domain and range. The thing I want you to notice in your domain and range is you notice how your domain, the x values of the red one, become the range, the y values. So x's and y's switch, that means they'll also switch domain and range, will switch on you as well. So we're really going to see where everything switches for x and y. Yes? A diagonal line is a line that is on an angle like that. Yeah. This is vertical, this is horizontal. Okay, so I gave you the questions to do on this one, 4 and 9.